Hey guys, what's happening? So for this one, we're jumping back into the Ultimates for issue 2, which is also written by Dennis Camp. And if by chance you need to get caught up with the events leading up to this point, I have a playlist in the description with all our coverage on Earth 6160, so hopefully that'll help anyone who's new to all of these different series understand what's going on in the larger picture. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so for Ultimates issue 2, this picks up on July 4th at the White House, which is now all gold, and we'll talk more about why in a little bit. And really in this world, it's referred to as the Big House more often than it's called the White House, because a lot's changed in this world. And as it would seem, the Big House is being attacked by some terrible threat, only for us to find out that it's actually the newly formed Ultimates, who, like we saw towards the end of the first issue, these guys already don't have the best reputation. But as this continues, we'll find out there's a lot more going on here than what it seems like on the surface. Because for starters, when they show up, this little girl points at Captain America and she asks her mom, what does the letter A on his head stand for? And the captain even pauses for a second before he's like, okay, Ultimates, let's go save America. Which right there, saving America, that's something Captain says quite a bit throughout issue 2. And there's more to it than just what it sounds like. But before we follow them in, we go back about 12 days, where at the time Tony showed Captain America a holoprogram, showing him the past 75 years of history, based on Howard Stark's personal files, so Steve could get caught up on everything he missed. And keep in mind, on this world, Earth 6160, as we know, the Maker has been changing events throughout time, to prevent anyone from becoming a superhero, and to turn this into his ideal world. But to the people of this Earth, this is pretty much just their history as they know it. This is just the way things played out. So heading into what's happening now, Steve Rogers has been fully caught up on what this world and this country has become. And even though it's just glimpses that we get, it's still pretty crazy to see things like the JFK assassination with Howard Stark there, and things like the nuclear arms race, Galactus coming to Earth, mutant protests. All of these events were in Howard Stark's files. And I'm hoping we get to see some of these past events in spin-offs at some point in the future, because I think those will make for some really good stories. But nonetheless, in the present moment, when Tony and Cap make their way to the Oval Office, it's here where they find Midas, where in his case, he's not too different from Dr. Midas in the main Marvel Universe. He's got the same powers where anything he touches will turn into gold, and he's practically rocking the same look from the Marvel Boys series from 2000. But the biggest difference I would say there is between the two is that the Midas from the main Marvel Universe, he started out as a scavenger collecting alien technologies, to where eventually he exposed himself to cosmic radiation for 5 years, which is how he got his powers. And continuing on that path, he started the Midas Foundation, which was only really used for the same thing because he really just became a scavenger on a much larger scale, collecting and trading anything of value that he could find throughout the universe and other dimensions, just for his personal gain. But as for the Midas we find here on Earth 6160, we're just told that he's always been an entrepreneur. But to be fair, he is very much still a bit of a scavenger in the same, hence the Howard Stark Mark I suit. But this Midas comes off as having more political ambitions, along with his lust for power, as opposed to the Dr. Midas from the main universe, who was only focused on power and personal gain. So I'd say the two characters in comparison have a lot of the same ingredients, just different proportions. But nonetheless, when Tony and Steve get here, right out the bat, Tony's pissed because he sees this dude wearing his daddy's armor, which for the most part to Midas, it was just a collector's item, and really it was the only thing he could take when the Stark assets went up for grabs, since the Osborns pretty much got everything else. But on top of that, we also learned that Midas made a deal with the Maker, which is how he was able to take over the White House since 1963 after assassinating John F. Kennedy, which at the time for Midas, that was just part of the deal. So his story makes sense how he came into power, because for a long time he was also a member of the Hellfire Club, who founded the former United States of America. So later on, when he gained ties with the Maker's Council, he used these connections to make deals and change what once was the United States of America to the North American Union and regional subsidiaries, which just rolls right off the tongue. But nonetheless, while Steve and Tony are here, Midas, who's a businessman first, he tries to make a deal with them, only for Steve to tell him they're not here to make a deal, they're here to save America. So of course Midas just laughs in their face and starts telling them how important the almighty dollar is, while at the same time, for some reason, he keeps calling Tony boy, and he don't like that one bit. So eventually Cap gives Midas an ultimatum, because he tells him, we know what you've been doing in the basement, so you can either shut that down or we're gonna shut it down for you. So he tells Midas his options are with or through. And I gotta admit, when I first read this, I was like, man, what you been doing in the basement? Because whatever it is, and I mean, like, this is on my first read through, and I'm going through like, man, whatever it is, it's gotta be serious, because this dude's ready to fight for it. And I mean, my first guess was that it was something like his browser history, but I was wrong. Because as it turns out, we end up getting this moment where Steve tells Tony that they're going through. So Tony blasts a hole in the floor, sending everyone down into the basement, including Giant Man and Wasp, where at this point, Giant Man, he's given all he's got, so he's out of the fight. And as for Iron Lad, for Tony, that blast took so much energy that it reduced his suit to basic functions. But now that they're in the basement, they find that he's holding a woman here, who for us, it's pretty obvious who it is, but for Midas, he doesn't know her identity or her name. He just says that he believes she fell from the future as a victim of some violent expulsion, or perhaps an escape gone wrong. But also we find out when she arrived here years ago, this is how Midas got his power, because with her producing cosmic energy naturally, he would bathe in it for 1 hour each day, which is what eventually gave him his abilities. But it doesn't just stop there, because he went on to use her to turn a profit. With samples of her self-repairing clothes, they made cosmic ray shielding lighter than cotton. In her blood, they found compounds that cured all forms of cancer. So Midas just had his scientists turn it into a lifelong daily treatment that cost $10,000 a dose. And on top of that, she's powering half of Maryland and Virginia, in addition to the armor he's wearing right now. And really, with Midas saying all these things to Cap, this is him giving his "This is America" speech, because Cap keeps saying, I have to save America. We're here to save America. Which again, for Midas, when he hears that, he believes that Steve is holding on to a system that no longer exists. And Midas even admits when it did exist, it wasn't that great to begin with. So saving America, or trying to free America, to Midas, this just sounds like a fool's errand. But eventually we find out what Cap really means when Wasp steps in and she frees the girl who Midas has been keeping down here all this time. And I gotta admit, when Wasp destroys this machine and frees the girl, the reaction we get from Midas, you can tell he just lost his prized possession in this one moment. And there's a bit of a relief seeing this happen, because the idea of some dude keeping a girl locked in his basement for all these years, that's just weird and next level suspect, especially with him not knowing her name and referring to her as my love. Like, what in the Victor Von Goon is going on here? But nonetheless, with the machine destroyed, he no longer has the power source for his suit. So with him losing mobility and slowing down, the Ultimates jump him, and Cap catches him in the back of the neck with that shield. Which right there has Midas like, I think you broke my neck, Captain. So Cap just tells him, hey, gold's a soft metal, which is very true. But also, now that this machine is shut down, Midas tells them you got half of Maryland and Virginia, hundreds of thousands of people without power. And this includes hospitals, airports, traffic systems. So taking this one girl is like serving death to countless others. So the Ultimates, they take her anyway. And as it turns out, this girl is America Chavez. And this whole time when Cap was saying things like, we need to save America, we need to free America, this whole time he was talking about her. So now that she's free, and with the Ultimates, I can only imagine that her powers are going to play a huge role as far as taking things beyond time travel. Because depending on how her powers are handled here, she could become a bridge that connects the Ultimates to the main Marvel universe. But on top of that, with us getting that montage of Captain America watching 75 years of history in 9 days, just 3 days before all of this went down, we now know moving forward he's up to speed with the history of this world, as far as the substantial events. So I'm curious to see if the A on his uniform and the star and the stripes will end up meaning something different to him moving forward, or if it'll be connected to America Chavez and where she's from in some sort of way. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. and we'll do it again on the next one. All right, later.